Here we are underway, starting Baltimore and Ohio, and I had already set up the money in the place bets. I immediately see a flaw. I've liked this game the first time I played it. I really enjoyed it because it was all about kind of trying to figure out how to take advantage of the situation. But here's the thing. I've got 6 players sitting here. They all have an amount of money. There's no initial private auction like there is in most 18xx games to kind of redistribute what that starting position is. So you've got all the tracks in fixed all the players, all the companies start in fixed locations. The money is fixed by the number of players. So if you've played it in 6 before, you have enough money to, as it were, buy 4 shares at 60. That's probably your best move. You can't afford 4 shares at 66, and you can't afford 5 shares at 55. So you've got kind of this, and that's going to happen in every game. You have X amount of money, and you can buy that many shares, and that's just what you're going to do, right? So now you're sitting in this position where it's what companies are good, and I like the pen. I think it's got this nice, I really like this lineup because it gets to the call very quickly. So that's the first company I started. Now there's going to be some definite competition. In a 2-player game, the number of players determines the competition level, because in a 2-player game, I immediately just bought one company with all my money, just like I would here, I believe. I may have started a second, I'm not sure. But you're able to kind of focus your money based on the number of players. So by playing with different numbers of players, it's like playing a different scenario. There's no question there. But it's not got that kind of shake-up at the beginning of the game that the private companies provide, say, to a game of 1830. It feels like the kind of game where you're going to get an opening book for a certain number of players that very rapidly develops. The first player will always pick a certain company, and if the pen is the best company, that's great. There certainly are different management styles to the different companies, and that may shake things up a little bit, but I think you're going to see the same companies start, and you see that in 1830, to tell you the truth. But you're going to see them start all at the same value, and there probably isn't going to be a lot of variety in this game. It's probably going to get pretty old very fast. That's just an initial guesstimate, but I think, you know, this would never dawn on me playing it opposed. But this is one of the things I get when I play a game solitaire. I immediately start seeing these kind of things. Hey, wait a minute, there's a problem. Whereas when I play a game opposed, I could play it 4 or 5 times and not really realize this until it started getting old. Okay, so let's see how close I come to that opening book. It's hard to tell. Obviously, the second player actually made a mistake, but we'll see what comes of all that. Boston and Maine. I look at that and I say, this is a nice area. I can hit New York. I've got Boston. I'm able to connect. Albany's not far away. I've got a decent number of cubes, better than the NYNH. I can spread out a little bit. That's nice. Well, we'll get to why it's not. C&O. This is the most like the pen. It starts out in a decent 30-pointer to begin with. Yes, it goes down in value eventually. Richmond won't become an important thing. But if I really need it, I have Washington or Norfolk or even Baltimore not far away. I don't have the easy access to New York. It's not as good as the pen, but it has a few more cubes. Seems like another good railroad. NYNH. The guy who bought that said, you know, I'm not going to let the guy who bought the B&M get away with that. It could be a good move, but to buy the B&M, but not if somebody's going to buy the NYNH. The NYNH has earlier, easier access to New York, and ends up probably going to score a decent amount of money early on. It's a crappy railroad, though. It's not something you want. You know, you need to turn that into something else later in the game. Although you can just keep cranking money with it throughout the game. The final 5th player took the NYC. The restrictions on the NYC are not as pleasing as those on the pen for me. I like the pen's restrictions because they don't interfere with it going towards the getting coal mines, and the pen can actually pull in good money early in the game. The NYC doesn't have that opportunity. It has to run down to New York. It can get cut off from New York by somebody else building there where it can't enter because of the restrictions on the number of track. And then the final player said, well, my last two options are the B&O, which is sort of a third-rate version of this Penn C&O. It has a lot of tokens. I'll give it that. Not as many as the C&O. It eventually is closer to the New York area and might make some money. But really, it would be a third person competing for the call. That would be probably a decent option. Because Baltimore eventually gets kind of valuable. Erie's equivalent, really. A little bit better track up here, but a little less, or a little bit better city to start with in terms of value than Baltimore. But less opportunity for expansion in the East Coast than the B&O actually has in the long run. So maybe a little less tasty. Although out west, we've got Detroit and Cleveland. Oh, by the way, this is an impassable barrier here. And there's another one here. Just as a little bit of the terrain that isn't terribly obvious. So neither one of those sounded really great. And then the choice then becomes, okay, what if I'm an investor? What do I want to do? And obviously what I want to do is hitch on to the best money maker. And I think that's going to be the NYNH. I can't be certain of that. The Penn might actually be a pretty good money maker early on with the call. But it depends on the turnaround time here. Other than that, it's hard to see something that's going to make a lot. And the idea there being, I can always sell these suckers and pick up things as they improve. I'm not really wedded to running my company or holding it. And there's no real terrible advantage to holding a company in this game. The only big thing is you kind of can't so in an 18xx game, you have this advantage of the extra certificate towards your limit. But there's no concept of that here. You're allowed to hold as many stocks as you like, as far as I can tell. I'm going to get rid of this. And so it's there's no real boost to it. You can't dump a train into another company. You can't rape a company quite as badly. You can run it hard and make it less profitable in the long run. You can sell shares and reduce its certificate value. But there isn't anything too terrible you're going to get. So this guy is going to make every penny that this guy cranks out of his NYNH. And the question there then was, well, which is going to be the most profitable, or do I want to spread out and invest in a lot of things just in case I don't trust a player's ability, or I'm not absolutely certain which way something's going. One might be able to come stronger, but I don't want to put all my eggs in that basket. And this means that the NYNH has a pile of money on it, 480 instead of the 240 that companies start with, that the companies have all started with, because everybody starts it at the same value. There just isn't enough differentiation in these different values to allow you to make the kind of choices that you make in, say, a game of 1830. All right, well, that is actually the end of the market round. People could sell their shares and play around with them, but there's no reason for that at this point, so we'll go into the first business. Okay, let's unplug here and try to play through the first kind of few operated rounds, business rounds, whatever you want to call them, before we go to the more high-level view that I like to take. All right, so first off, we're going to play the Penn because it's at the top of the pile. Everybody started at the same amount. And the first thing I do, I have this little list here. I scrap equipment now. I can buy capital equipment. Here's where the question comes in. What am I going to do first? What do I need? And you have to kind of make a lot of decisions here. To begin with, I've got one company set up, or one city set up. So I'm going to build one train. That's going to cost me 90 bucks. But do I want another right away? If I build into New York, which is my biggest money gain, that's going to cost me 60 bucks to build there. Whereas some of these other directions I could go in will cost less. I'm going to have to go to New York eventually. I want to. But maybe I don't need to do it right away. Maybe I want to span forward this way. Reason I'm thinking this is because I have competition from the C&O heading this way into those coal mines. Plus, actually, I cannot go to New York right away. I have to hit these three cities first. So my first track lay is going to be here. I'm not going to need a second train on this first turn. if there's a one train available, it'll be cheaper if I wait. So I'm going to wait. I don't have to do the kind of pre-planning that you have to do in an 18XX game. So I'm going to spend 90 on that, and then I buy my track. That puts me up to 110 bucks that I had to spend. And I quickly make the change over here. And now I've bought my capital equipment, my track. I check my gross income. I have one train with one city capability. That gets me 30. So right now I'm at 30, but hold on, because I don't actually move this yet. This might be ahead. I'm worried about the net income. So I have to pay my maintenance costs as well, which is another 10 off that. So my net income is going to be 20. Now, that's not a lot of money, but I want to pay it out because I get the stock increase if I pay it out. So I'll pay that out at 20 a share, and I'll be getting 80 in my company treasury, or in my personal treasury. 20, 40, 60, 80. Whereas my company treasury has 6 shares in it. It's going to pull $120. Wow, I'm funding my company off those extra certificates. That's kind of nice, except I just cheated. This is divided by 10. So that's only, yeah, it's like an XX game. That's only 12 bucks goes in there. And yeah, I'm not really funding my company. I'm getting a few bucks that I can't pick up. And instead of 80, I get 8 bucks personally. That would be a nice little exchange there. I don't want to go into that much detail on every rail in terms of how much I'm thinking about it. So I'll come back after I've whipped around. I've done one company. We can do the rest, and I can kind of discuss them at that higher level. I think it's too much detail at this point. Most of you have probably seen one of my XX covers already. All right, so now we go to the second company, which is going to be the B&M, and they actually are going to fall in the player order just because nothing's happened to change that. Everybody bought at the same price. I like to lie a little bit, so I stopped partway through. The B&M built track going into Providence. It bought 2 trains for that, paying $195. You can see as the prices go down. That'll allow it to service both of them. That got it to 30 bucks a share, which it of course paid out so that it could increase stock value. C&O similarly went into Washington with 2 trains. Now it only cost them $165 to get those trains and produced the same kind of money. Now the B&M is screwed here because of the NYNH. They can't build track here. They can't build track over in Albany. They've got these penalties where they can't get to the places that they really want to go. So that's kind of a disadvantage. And that puts us on the NYNH. And the NYNH has this interesting situation. So they could have, I think, let me check the track laying rules here just to make sure. Yeah. So the Pennsylvania could have built into New York right off the bat and had a bigger initial run than it did to begin with. In fact, a very nice initial run. The NYNH doesn't have much choice. They have to go into New Haven. But one question is, right now, this is the first of the 2 trains. If they buy one of those, they hook up 2 with 1 train. It only costs them $140. That's kind of a deal. But here's the problem. When are they gonna be able to get to New York? What do they have to do to plan for that? I don't think they really do have to plan for it. I think they can go into New Haven. It's only a $10 track lay compared to $40 going through the Hudson Valley. So, actually that's not the Hudson Valley. That's like mountains. The Hudson Valley. Yeah, I don't know. It's right around here. There's really no option there. And I think they only want the 1 train. But here's the thing. They buy this 2 train. Now they can get to Boston, which is actually a better market. I think they're going to do that instead. So they're going to pay their 140 for this. They're going to pay 10 for that. So they're up to 150. Now, ooh, wait. When do you convert? Because here's the thing. If the conversion happens at the right time, they can build 2 hexes. So they might have actually wanted 2 trains. Let's see when the eras change. I think they happen at the end of the turn. No, it takes effect immediately. So here's what we're going to do. See, we have a 2 train that can get us Boston and Hartford, but we could also get New Haven if we buy another train. Do we need that right away? Nah, we're going to hold. We're going to hold. Here's why. There's going to be another train available. And if it's a 3 train and costs us more, so be it. Right now we can afford this. So we'll pay that 150 initial money. We have a lot of money, so to some extent we have the more of an opportunity where we could have bought that extra train, but we don't want to. We've advanced into here, so now we're in the second price range, which doesn't really make a difference to us, but that puts us up to 50 bucks, but we pay 20 per train. So we still only make that 30 buck return on investment, which we're of course going to pay out. Whenever you can get a stock value increase, you want to, unless you have a good reason not to. I'll give that cash out. That's going to be 12 bucks to each of these, but only 6 bucks in the company treasury. Everybody else has been pulling 18 in their company. So after the NYNH went, now the NYC gets to go. It still only gets 2 track lays. It bought a 2 train and hooked up New York. A lot of money spent there. $230. It's almost out of money, but it makes a big run because it's connecting up 70 bucks minus 20 for a single train is 50. It's paying out 5 a share. That brings them the best money at 20 bucks, and everybody's kind of, this guy especially is kind of like, damn, I should have invested in that. I just didn't see it. I couldn't, project everything that's going to happen. And now, not only does he get 20, the company gets 30, which gives it enough money to operate a little bit, but not enough to buy another train, which is what it needs to do to improve its income. So here's the problem they're going to face is they're not going to have that easy advance in the stock market that some of the other companies are going to get. I think it'll pay out okay in the end, but as of right now, the NYC has kind of cut itself off by building this expensive track into New York that cost them $100. They could have gotten, say, out to Syracuse for 20 bucks, and maybe they wouldn't have had enough money to buy 2 trains then. But maybe at the end of a round. That puts us at the end of the first operating round, and we flip these suckers over, and we go through it again. Jump in with the decision making for the Penn because it's kind of interesting here. The Penn has chosen not to buy another train. They have enough cash they could buy another train, and they could have hooked up another city and increased their stock value, but that doesn't get them the rush for coal, and I think coal is very important, and they want to get as much of it as they can. So what they're doing instead is they're paying a lot of money for that track, 100 bucks. To lay these 2 tracks. Now they don't get that coal immediately. They have to wait until next turn, and instead of laying track, they'll get it there. They have a 1 train, so all they're running is the 40 bucks now for Philadelphia. Minus 20 is 20. That's the same money that they paid out before. They're going to pay it out again, mainly because 20 bucks just isn't worth swallowing for. He might as well get some cash in here. But unlike an XX game, he's not going to gain any ground on here. It's just he's getting more investment money in his own pocket, and it seems worthwhile at this point, even though 20 bucks. No, he wants to swallow. He wants to swallow that 20 bucks, and let me explain why. When I look at his money, he has 20, 42 bucks. 60 bucks is what he needs to get to this next call. So that'll allow him to lay more track. He may not even pick up this call next turn because he's trying to lay claim to the call, the cheapest call cards. These guys are 100 each. This one's only 80, and the C&O could get down there fairly easily. But he wants to claim as many of these as possible. He's playing this long-term game. So here's the thing. There's not really a huge advantage to paying out every turn like there is in an XX game. You don't get that increase in stock value every turn. You only get it if you get an increase, and he's already chosen not to take that. He might as well take the swallow and improve his long-term position. And now we move on, and since everybody moved forward, we're on the B&M. B&M's prospects have just improved. He can now kind of break out through Hartford and New Haven and start linking up a kind of powerful little run. It's not going to be very big, and he's got to buy some more trains to work it. He may not have the cash for that. What does he have sitting on hand? He bought 2 trains, so he probably doesn't. He only has 43 bucks. He's not going to be able to buy a train. Even if he cashed in one of his trains for 20, he's still way short. That's a problem. That's really a problem. And he may need to swallow in order to get any cash there. He probably wants to build his track out, though, just to develop it for when he does get a train. Having those 2 trains is a problem because his total income is 30 plus 30 is 60 bucks minus 40 puts him down to only 20. He lost money, so actually his stock value is going to drop down to that $60 value. That's a big hit and really unpleasant. He really, really got screwed over by that NYNH position. Did he? I don't know. At least these increased in value. So yeah, the 2 trains on one company doesn't work terribly well in this many players. It works very well in a smaller number of companies being out. All right, well now we're on the C&O, and they're probably in the same kind of condition. We'll see how much cash they have kicking around. They only have 40, 50, 60, 73 bucks. They do not have enough money to buy a train. Maybe it's time to start heading for that call, but they don't have a lot for that either. 73, well right now I'm going to be making 50 minus 40 is only 10. I'm going to take a hose there. If I improve things a little bit, I could build to here, and I could take 60 bucks minus 40 is 20. That still will drop my stock value. It just doesn't seem worth the effort at this point. So what I'm going to do is not buy a train, which I cannot. I am allowed to buy 2 cubes. If I race here, this is easy. But then, what do I do? Because if red builds this, then I'm golden. I can be the first person in here. But if red doesn't build this and goes into here, and they have the cash, money's open, I can ask that. I also knew that he swallowed. Then, and I can see that that's what they're intending, then I've built some track that doesn't really help me. I've wasted money. On the other hand, if I build to here, I spend 100 bucks. I'm close to a couple hundreds, and I'm in the chase there. But I think I'm going to spend the 20 bucks here. That'll get me another city and get me into range of the closest, cheapest one of these. So I throw that 20 bucks in, and now what? Well, now my train runs, and it's only running for 50 minus 40 is 10 bucks a share. And it doesn't matter whether I pay out or not. Also really doesn't matter too much, or $1 a share, I'm sorry. It doesn't matter too much what kind of money I'm producing here, whether I'm swallowing, because 10 bucks is just not going to make much of a difference to the company. I'm going to pay it out. Yes, it means some change, but it may be the difference in me being able to buy a share. Of course, it may also be the difference in me being able to make it into another city or buy a train or something at some point. I'm in trouble here with the C&O. It's foundering. It needs to sell some shares. So I got to get money into my own pocket, I think, to do that. So I'll pay out in the hopes I'm not going to have the cash to. NYNH, I already had 2 trains on board, didn't I? No, I bought a second train for only 120 bucks and linked up New York and New Haven, and that boosted my income significantly. It's up to 70 now. 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 110 minus 2 trains at 40 puts me at 77 a share. That's 28 bucks for the 2 co-investors and only 14 bucks sitting in the company treasury. The company's not making a lot of money. Chances are this guy, unless the president wants to be first, somebody is going to dump the company. It's when it happens. It's a game of chicken, because right now it's making the best money. You don't want to get rid of it. Whatever you buy from it before it isn't going to do it. But if you time the crest right, just like in an XX game, you can get an advantage by doing that. What about our NYC? What kind of money do they have? I suspect it's not much. They weren't very rich to begin with. They've only got 40 bucks in there, so they're obviously not buying a train. And all they have is a 2 train. This is the best they can do. They'd love to get down to the coal, but they're not going to be able to do that. Their run is going to stay the same because we haven't changed tech level, so they're still going to be making that 50 bucks, 5 a share. That's going to mean that their stock value doesn't change. If they get 5 a share, that gives them 20 more bucks. That's not going to be enough to buy a share of anything. The lowest available stock is even at 60 bucks. So now the question is, well, do you want to swallow or do you want to pocket some money? I don't know. What would the whole 50 bucks mean? The whole 50 bucks would put me up to a total of 90, which is not really close enough to buying a train. So, you know, I'm going to start my expansion because I can build elsewhere if I do. It's only 20 bucks. And, you know, this may cost me a turn in terms of when I get to buy my train. It may cost me several turns because trains start falling. That's hard to tell. For my 50 bucks, I'm going to pay it out because I do want some more cash in my pocket. Even if I can't buy anything, who knows? Right now, I think that's worth more. So at 5 a share, I get 20, and the company gets 30. And the guy who owns the NYNH doesn't feel too bad because now, well, not this guy, but the second guy who bought it doesn't feel too bad because it's clear his company is going to be producing and outproducing for some time. Although he's not going to be optimizing his stock market value as much as he could have. If he didn't hit all these cities, he might have kind of played it out and made his stock more valuable and made a better deal overall. Because here we're talking 8 bucks a share. Here we're talking, well, maybe a couple extra bucks a share advantage to running as many trains as he did. Hard to tell. Those are the kind of judgments you have to make. So now, well, I'm going to load this up because this is the end of the first round. At the beginning of the next round, I'll tell you how much money everybody has, and I have to order the cards by that. Now this is kind of tricky solitaire. I may have to spreadsheet it out just to remember how much everybody has in between. But these suckers flip over, and you can see some people are making more off their stocks than others are.